Yeah, welcome to this video. This is coverage for Tata Steel 2015, an early highlight of the chess calendar. We've got the first round today, and in fact, I have to do this video right now, which is a bit early because the round is not finished yet. There's still one game going between Wesley So and Radoslav Wojtaszek, but I have to record the video now, otherwise it's simply too late. So I have to start now, and maybe at the end of the video I'll check if they're still playing. It's a pretty interesting game, so maybe I'll do something quick without any serious analysis at the end to just get an idea what happened there. Okay, let's get going. This is back again to the 14-player format. Last year they only had 12 players. And this means we have 7 games per round, which is the great thing, one of the great things about this event. It's got so many interesting games. So it's difficult to also keep track and think about what to do for each round. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all the games quickly, but we will see something of every game. This is what I'm trying to say. I will focus on some highlights, some important points, and maybe go to one game a little bit deeper. Let's just start with the game of the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. He had black against Giri. And this is an interesting game, mostly because of the first couple of moves. The rest is actually not that exciting. Let's have a look. Giri playing d4. He's also mixing it up with e4 once in a while nowadays, but mostly d4. And now Carlsen is shocking a little bit with the first move already. He plays g6. Shocking is maybe a bit strong, but yeah, on this level, this is kind of it's kind of unusual to play such a non-standard opening. Well, c4 could have gone e4 for a setup without c4. Probably we will have something like that happening. Again, this is not what Carlsen usually does. I mean, really not. He's more of the knight f6, e6 kind of guy. Sometimes he plays the Grünfeld, but this is really really interesting. And also, I mean, even if this game, if I'm going to spoil it a little bit now, is not that exciting, it is good that outside of World Championship events, those kind of chess is still possible. In the World Championship match, you very often, this is very much influenced by match tactics. You don't want to risk anything. I mean, this is unthinkable that Carlsen would play this against Aronian. I mean, so this is good that this kind of chess is still played in normal events, and this is also why I think it's good that now Carlsen has 2 years to the next match, so that he can maybe experiment a little bit. Okay, we see what happens. Knight a3, e5. Knight c3, the trades, those kind of trades are very seldom a problem for black, even if he loses castling rights, due to this weakness on d4 for white. Not so great, this trade. Yeah, and we get an interesting position at first. Knight h6, yeah, interesting idea. Trying to harass the bishop on e3. This is why white also goes h3. And knight goes to f7. Yeah, it's funny that this setup has been recommended in the recent book, The Modern Tiger, by Tiger Hilla Persson, the Swedish grandmaster. A book that I actually want to make a review of. And it's not completely out of the picture that Carlsen maybe actually has this book. I saw it. I mean, he's known as an avid reader of chess books, even nowadays. He seems to take an interest in what other people are analyzing and writing. Yeah, an interesting approach now by Giri is c5. I like the move. I thought that this makes lots of sense, getting the bishop over to c4. But we see that with this, Carlsen is simplifying the position already. And now after d e5, we get something relatively dry on the board. Yeah, I see all those trades coming. And around here I was pretty sure that this would end in a draw because, well, there is not that much to play for. We have those trades, and it's a rather simplified position. Black now could trade queens and trade rooks. I mean, there's simply too much material off the board to get to anything serious. This pawn looks slightly weak, but it's very difficult to attack it. And for the moment, white is not coordinated that well. So it's not the game that we should spend so much time on. The only remarkable thing really was that Carlsen played this 1g6 opening, which is eminently playable on a let's say normal level anyway, but on top level it's not seen that often. Yeah, and we get to a king and pawn endgame where basically both sides have no way to win as long as you simply stay put. What you never should do here is as black to push c4 in the wrong moment, or white. Let's say if white takes on e5, yeah, this is not a good idea. Then c4 will come and we will win e4 and get to the pawns. Yeah, so I mean something like this is so completely suicidal. Yeah, black will now pick up the whole king side. So white actually here in this position after h5, he just has to stay, yeah, just play a non-move, yeah, like king here, king d3, just stay. And for black it's the same thing. He can also just what is the easiest, maybe this kind of shuffle, yeah, and not do anything fancy. If you play this, yeah, you're getting into trouble, yeah? And this will be a weakness. So both sides have no way forward, so they agree to draw. Not very exciting, but well, interesting opening choice. It would be interesting to see Carlsen playing some of those more offbeat lines once in a while. I mean, he's not he's experimenting anyway in the opening, switching around with systems, but playing this kind of things is interesting once in a while. Not that much in this game, but it's interesting. He played the Alekhines defense, things like that in some games. Okay, the next game, which also wasn't super exciting, is Radjabov Van Wely. The only thing that was a bit remarkably also was the opening. Van Wely played the Pirz defense, kind of related to what Carlsen played with g6. And it was quite remarkable that both players spent so much time, especially Radjabov here. If you look at this, we have the clock times here. They are sometimes slightly off, but just a little bit off. See, he spent like 20-something minutes on playing d4, d5, which is really remarkable. I mean, and it's not even a good move. So, I mean, let's say not a really great move. The problem is that you're pretty early on now, yeah, determining the pawn structure, and we get a Benoni here where black is pretty okay with early e6. Yeah, and it got somewhat sharp, yeah, here, but we see that black has no problems. The bishop on c6 is just a good piece, and white does not have any attack on the king side to speak of. This is really a game where not that much happened. Yeah, it could be looked at a little bit more in more detail, but compared to the other games, there was relatively little content. There was also never a situation where one of the sides could have gained anything substantial. So I think it was a draw relatively. Yeah, here they made this pendulum here. Nothing much to report on, to be perfectly honest. But there were other interesting games. I mean, don't worry, we come to that. Next one is this one. Liren Aronian playing black here against Grandmaster Ivan Saric. Yeah, this is probably a player, maybe a player you don't know. Ivan Saric, it's a very strong player. You see that he's rating 2,666. So pretty high rating. And he has his fair share of good results. I mean, he, for example, beat Carlsen in the Olympiad, but admittedly Carlsen played a little bit very loose, let's say, if you use a poker term, and it's catching on in chess as well, playing loose. It's kind of fitting, however, in chess. If you play loose, meaning you kind of gambling around a little bit, trying to be aggressive, but it's sometimes a bit fishy, and this is what certainly happened in this game where Carlsen, he wanted a little bit too much, and Saric very mercilessly used this opportunity to beat the world champion. He's a really good grandmaster. So let's see, we have an Italian game here. This is what Saric sometimes plays, and the Italian game is a very good supplementary opening to the Ruy Lopez. If you play e4, e5, I mean, if you play e4 and you have to do something against this. If you play the Rui, it's a good idea to also play the Italian game once in a while. Very often the resulting positions are not that far away from each other, and you are less predictable. Yeah, Aronian basically always plays bishop c5, and now a little interesting moment after castles. That's a nice move order, in fact, that sometimes can irritate players. Aronian surprisingly played the move d6. Surprisingly, because normally you would expect him to play knight f6, not determining yet the d-pawn. The thing is, after knight f6, white normally goes d3, and now black is still very flexible. You don't have to play this, and you have forced white to play the move d3, which all in all is something that black definitely wants to see. The drawback of knight f6, or let's say drawback is a bit strong, but one specific point that might happen is that white has this funny gambit line d4. And sometimes the move d6 is played to avoid this precise gambit line. However, it is known that this is actually good for black. So, I mean, sometimes I must admit that I sometimes have played this just to avoid the gambit altogether. So I played the same as Aronian did, but on that level it's a bit strange that he plays d6, because if they really, I mean, they are professionals, they have analyzed this, and this is actually good for black. Yeah, with f4, d6, takes, bishop g5. And now here, there's multiple ways for black. I mean, a funny move here is rook g8, which looks completely crazy, but is a computer suggestion, actually not that bad. Okay, it's leading a bit far away from the game, but it's kind of strange that Aronian is allowing this here, because the difference is now white gets in d4 in one move, which is not terrible for black. Yeah, I mean he's not willingly entering a bad position. It's just weird that he allows it. Okay, the thing is that white here has this opportunity also to simplify the game. Check. And this is what Saric did. I mean, he probably is not completely unsatisfied with a quiet position against the world number. Oh, I have to think about this. World number, I think Aronian is just number 5 or something at the moment. You kind of used to say world number 2 because he was that for quite a while. But, well, let's say against a player who's clearly stronger than him, he's probably not too dissatisfied with the quiet position. Note that white cannot grab here, because rook f8 and then knight takes e4 wins the pawn back here. I mean, something like that is even a bit awkward for white. So you cannot grab on f7, and there's basically not that much happen. Pretty quiet game. But this one particular position of interest. Yeah, in fact, white has made some headway. Yeah? If you look at this, he's got the bishop, he's got a little bit more space. White is slightly for choice, but now something is happening. Aronian here in this position could have been faced with huge problems if now Saric would have found the right move. Maybe you can treat this as a little exercise. It's obviously not that easy. If you see a kind of, I mean, not quite sure. This is probably world number 100 or something. It's like, I think, number 80 or number something around that, Saric. He didn't find the right move now, but maybe now that you know that there is something special, you can find it. I'll be silent for a couple of seconds so that you have the chance to pause the video. Or as I just took the chance to drink something. Yeah, white has a really nice move now in, he didn't play it, in c6. A very nice tactical idea, or tactically supported idea. The big thing is that if black grabs a rook, yeah, this is super dangerous pawn. And how does it continue? Yeah, well, rook d8 and bishop b5. And this is in fact completely winning for white. Yeah, the pawn will promote. It's impossible to prevent that. Maybe with some very, I mean, it's completely winning. Yeah, something. I can also take even. Yeah, just take and promote will also win, and the a pawn. Yeah, I mean, if black plays a move like that, we're not even going to promote. Yeah, we're going to push the pawns. Yeah, It's really cute. The problem probably was that he didn't even vaguely considered c6. I mean, once you see the move, yeah, and you see that rook takes d1 is not actually working, it's pretty apparent how strong it is. But he probably only saw that, well, okay, the rook is hanging, and then he just exchanged on d7. And after that, bishop d7 was, oops, covering this. So it wasn't a problem anymore for black. We should also, of course, go back and figure out what happens if black is not taking on d1, because that's clearly better. A rook takes d1 really loses instantly. So he had to take, or in this case, after black would have been forced to take. And now the big point is rook c1, attacking c6, and black cannot cover it. I mean, okay, he can, but let's say knight d4 is the only sensible way to cover it. Then bishop a6. And now the big idea is just, well, moving the bishop to back to f1 or to b7, depends on the situation. And well, here, and the a pawn will run. No way to stop it. The a pawn is super strong, supported by the bishop. Yeah, probably rook b8 is the toughest, but white has a move like that, for example, here. And then, well, good luck in stopping this pawn. This will be very difficult. White also has ideas like this, getting the c6 pawn at the end. So black here is on the ropes, really. c6 would have been very, very strong and possibly could have spoiled Aronian's start to the tournament. But Saric didn't do it. He took on d7. It would be interesting to note how long he took for the move, by the way. Let's check this. Yeah, see, it took 30 seconds for that. Yeah, it's a case where you don't see the move at all. This is the problem. Once you see that the possibility exists, you see relatively quickly that it is strong. But you probably only think at this moment that, oh well, okay, he attacks the rook. I mean, rook c1 is completely crazy, yeah, moving the rook away, so you have to take. Very often you take these decisions quickly, and well, in most cases your decision is right, that you don't spend time on an obvious move, but sometimes there are those hidden little tricks that really make a big difference. So a chance for Saric that wasn't used. Okay, the next game, Ivanchuk playing white against Jobava. Yeah, Jobava, very interesting, enterprising player from Georgia, always yeah, playing interesting new ideas in the opening and in the early middle games. Very, very interesting player. And Ivanchuk, of course, yeah, a legend. Yeah, nothing to say about him. I mean, everybody knows how versatile and how exciting he is to watch. This game actually, it didn't happen that much. They had an interesting moment early in the opening. In this position, actually, Jobava played the move g6, which personally I have never seen. I actually forgot to check if this is something that is played there. I mean, not regularly. I'm pretty sure about that. But it's a really strange looking idea to put the bishop on g7 when you really expect the bishop to be necessary to cover d6. It's really a bit strange, this idea. But he didn't have any problems at all in the game. Yeah, it's funny. In fact, the bishop on g7 quite often was interestingly supporting a move like knight d4. Yeah? If we think about this, okay, well, it didn't. He went back. We had the little knight d4. This is what I'm talking about. The bishop on g7. Yeah? It's supporting this jumps to d4. Yeah, f3 was played by Ivanchuk, but if we consider this, yeah, we see that all of a sudden this bishop is fantastically placed on g7. So an interesting opening idea, but I don't want to really spend much time on this game. The only thing is there was an interesting moment right at the end, a very interesting moment, but I don't want to look at all the moves. Yeah, could have looked at it, but
check.
The interesting moment here, the key point is coming right here. e5, and now it is black's move 42. And it's important to note that it is move 42. I mean, they were not in time trouble anymore. And we come to a very, this is a very instructive situation. It is black to move. We see that we have an equal number of pawns, and it's all about activity and time in this endgame. Yeah, pawns are running. The white pawns are far advanced, e5 and f5. There's an e pawn passer possible, or sometimes an f pawn passer like f6, e6, this kind of ideas. White is close to promoting one of the pawns. Black, on the other hand, he's got the a pawn or possibly the b pawn. So we have a kind of a race situation. White is more active with his king. That's very important. The king is on d5. It's a very dramatic situation where now you have to play really precisely. The position is objectively equal, but black has to be very precise. For example, there is a drawing line that I can show you. It's really deep. It has some fine points. Black can take and play rook f4. This is a pretty straightforward draw. When you see the line, to calculate it is a different thing. f6, yeah, intending e6. The pawn was hanging, yeah, cannot give it away. Rook f3, yeah, keeping an eye on this pawn. King d6, yeah, intending to go to the f7 pawn. And now b4, yeah, black is timing his counterplay correctly. This b4 move is just about right. Yeah, white now has, I mean, this is the most interesting try. Yeah, sacrificing the rook. Rook takes a3, takes
check.
a5, rook takes and e6. White's idea is obvious. He wants to promote one of the pawns. And black is just about right in time to stop them. Strong move, rook f5. Now e7 is
check.
even losing the game. Yeah, if we look at this. Here the f pawn, black will even win. So that's not really on. White has to play differently. Takes.
Check.
Check. King e7. Yeah, let's say rook drops back. White promotes. Here, and in this position, if we look at this, king c6, king g7, if you imagine that you are on move 42, this position where Jobava was to move, this kind of line is relatively easy to calculate for these players anyway, but also for slightly weaker players. It's a relatively straightforward line. But if you have this position in your mind on 10 moves earlier, yeah, I mean, it's not trivial. You can easily think, oh wait, yeah, he's going to take my pawn and then the h pawn will promote. Of course there are draws, yeah, but the king is really far away. If the king would be on e7, for example, then you easily see that king h7 takes and king f7 would be a draw. But here you might think, oh wait, I'm not in time to get this going. But black has a strong move, h5, the only move to draw. And the reason is it's simply that it gains time. The white king now has to spend time, and in this time that it costs to take the pawn, black is just in time to reach the critical square. He either gets to h8, where it will be a direct draw. Yeah, on h8 you just stay and wait, and the h pawn is not promoting. Or in this case, you go to f7, where you always block the king. A very instructive endgame. Yeah, white can push here, but ultimately he will not make any headway. Yeah, you have to stalemate himself basically, or go out, and then black is coming into the corner.
Check.
And again,
stalemate.
Exactly. Yeah, so this is a very nice way to draw here. This h5 move is very instructive. It gains the necessary time. Note that if black does that, he's not in time. Yeah, now white controls the squares and he will easily escort his pawn to promotion. Let's go back to the actual game. So taking on f5 and rook f4 was drawing. Rook f4 immediately probably as well. It's a little bit trickier, but it's a little bit, it's unnecessary. Taking rook f4 is relatively straightforward. But what did Jobava actually play? he played rook a4 after 8 minutes of thought. And the instructive thing about this move is what he does is he wants to get this endgame that we just have seen in a better version. What he's thinking about is if white plays rook b3, and then you think of the same situation, yeah, let's say something like this, and back, black might get tempo with a4. So he was thinking, okay, I'm winning a move here, this must be great. But what he did not do is, he did not really check the king and pawn endgame properly. The big problem is that white can now take and go into the king and pawn endgame. And this is the very instructive thing about this game, this position. When you offer a rook trade or any piece trade that leads into a king and pawn endgame, you have to be really, really, really cautious, because a king and pawn endgame is not an endgame that is better for anybody, slightly better for someone, slightly worse for someone. It will always be a draw or win or loss. So it's nothing you can back from normally. Yeah? I mean, okay, the other side can always blunder, yeah. But if you are making a mistake there, you're probably going to pay for it very dearly. And rook a4, in fact, as Jobava played it, loses the game. Really loses the game. I'm very surprised. I have checked it with the computer, that the computer takes a while to recognize this. But for a human player, it is not that difficult to grasp once you see the general position. For a computer, however, it's not so easy because it's so deep, so many moves deep. Yeah, well, what happened? Ivanchuk took it and Jobava resigned. He immediately resigned the game. Funny enough, yeah. It's a little bit of a shame that he didn't let it play out a little bit, but I can show you now why he resigned. Rook a4 was really a big blunder, and the problem is that b takes a4. We have to check this now in analysis because he resigned, as mentioned, and now white is not playing e6 or f6 or anything like that, which maybe looks attractive at first. If we look at this, let's say e6, then black will take.
Check.
Take here, and the a-pawn starts to run. We run as well. Oops, and then probably here or queen a2. And well, white is definitely not for choice. Yeah, black is a pawn up. It's just a question if he can win or not. So that's not really what white wants to do. Maybe this is what Jobava was hoping for. But white, of course, has another move, and I mean this one. And I was a bit surprised how long the computer takes to recognize the win. The thing is, why is this winning? The problem is, at first, it looks a bit tricky here. The rook pawns here, they prevent the white king from approaching. So it looks like it's difficult for white to do anything, but white has a threat actually. His threat is king d3, c2, b2, a3, and pick them up. And what is black going to do against it? There's actually no defense to that. Yeah, he can go king to c6, king d3, and now we come to the real point of it. What you initially think is, oh well, it must be king d5, right? Yeah, but this is losing. There is e6, and this is the big point, this breakthrough idea. If black now takes, you go f6, and this pawn is blocking the way for the king to stop the pawn. So the f pawn now will promote. The very, very nice breakthrough idea, but relatively simple to see. So not quite sure what Jobava exactly missed. I'm not saying this was, oh, he blundered or whatever. It can happen. Yeah, it would be interesting to hear what exactly he did miss there to really understand the thought process better. Well, e6 wins, but what we shouldn't forget is there's also this move. Yeah, black is not forced to take on e6, but now white will take king to e7. I have to stop it. And now what's the big problem? The problem is that there is also a c pawn. So white here, I can easily do something like that. and now he has a c pawn and an h pawn. Yeah, and these are so far apart, black has no way to stop that. Yeah, if we just look at this, and then the c pawn, yeah, they are so far apart. They promote, and white is always, yeah, in this well-known rectangle to stop the pawns. Another point is that if we look at this, king d5, yeah, and well, then e6. So let's say black is doing something else. What should he do? Let's say he plays a3, king c2, and then maybe you can think of this kind of idea, yeah? Advancing. Again, e6 wins, but I just wanted to show that there is another idea. Even white can also play kind of a funny move. King b3 also wins. Yeah, I was thinking that even this is winning. Yeah, black can never take because the pawn is pushing through. Maybe, I don't know, Jobava miscounted something, or I don't know. It is definitely a win now for white in this king and pawn endgame. Yeah, this is. White is just going all the way, picking up the pawns. Yeah, so it shows again in a big high level game that this kind of this offer to enter a king and pawn endgame should be really taken seriously. Any kind of mistake there is very costly, and Jobava, yeah, gave away half a point here with rook a4. White, on the other hand, I mean, how long did Ivanchuk take? 6 minutes, yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, white definitely has to check this, and it was indeed winning. Yeah, a final win here for Ivanchuk. It should have been a draw with rook f4, but yeah, other opponent blundered with the offering an untimely rook exchange. Okay, the next game is Vachier-Lagrave against Hou Yifan. So we have the women world champion participating, playing Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the top French player, MVL. Let's see what happened there. Just want to look at this quickly to make the video not longer as intended. It's already longer as I wanted it to be. We have a classical French. Yeah, good to see a different opening, not the Berlin all the time. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is actually playing the Ayechin-Chatard attack. Nice. This h4 move, still a sharp attempt against black in this classical French. And she plays h6. It's not a very common move, but I looked it up. It is played nowadays quite frequently. Doesn't seem to be that bad, and she gets a decent position in the game. Of course, black can also take it, or c5, or whatnot. Lots of moves possible. What black is doing with h6, she in this case, is basically going for the same thing as this, just with h4 and h6 inserted. So black is claiming, well, if this is okay for me, then this position with the insertion of h6 and h4 also shouldn't be that bad. Of course, white can also do this, but, well, it wasn't played. He took on e7, queen takes, and now knight b5. Interesting move to prepare c3 to support the center. And we got a really normal-looking French position. And now black player, she opened up the position really quickly here with e5. So getting rid of this typical French structure with f and e pawn traded against d and e pawn. The benefit, of course, for black is that this is now not a bad bishop anymore. This is an active piece that can be developed. On the other hand, on the negative side, we have an isolated d pawn, which, however, is not really a weakness at the moment. It cannot easily be attacked. The whole thing is also based on the fact that the knight on a3 really is a really bad piece. Yeah. White would love to get it involved, like on d4, or yeah, probably on d4. This would be the square that the knight would like to go to most. Yeah, not so easy. The whole thing is probably about equal. If we look at this, she could have gotten a really fine position actually here. Queen c7 was played, and now Hou Yifan played queen f6. Seems to be okay. But this was actually quite good now. Takes, bishop c6. And now the funny idea is to play rook to e8 and knight 8-8, knight to a8, a8 in the corner, trapping the rook. Quite funny, yeah? The rook has no squares. Yeah, this is probably about equal, this position. White, to not get the rook trap, probably plays this. And then knight a4 is interesting, rook f4 is interesting, or simply rook e8, well, with no problems whatsoever. Even if you consider this kind of endgame, this is on that level, it's just a draw, really. I mean, white can continue, and probably if you give this 10 times to Carlsen, he will win 1 or 2 games. But it's very okay for black, not a problem at all. It wasn't even necessary to go there, but even that is okay. Yeah, she played differently, played a tactical move with queen f6, intending to take here. This, however, had a slight drawback. Here, after queen d6, there was this threat, rook to b1, with a hanging knight. So black now had to play queen f6, and this is probably not what she intended to get on the board. If we look at this, this is now slightly awkward for black. It's not like losing, but it is awkward. You have 4 isolated pawns, while white only has 2. The only drawback from white's perspective, of course, is still this awkward knight here on a3. But anyway, this is not so great for black. In the game, however, it turned out to be not that terrible. She defended actively, all based on the fact that those pieces are loose. And I just want to go to one key point. Funny tactic here, by the way. Bishop to b5 can easily be overlooked, but it's nothing really really special. Here in this position, she played knight c3. Obviously, this is just pure calculation, yeah, just number crunching basically. And with 5 minutes, not easy to do. The move knight c5, it seems, was completely fine for black. Something like rook g3 check, for example, just go here. And if you look at this, those 2 pieces are pretty okay, yeah? They are active, and this is not really great still. The knight on a3 is a sorry piece. Always, those squares, they are covered by the bishop. But black is completely fine here. She played knight c3, however, as mentioned, with little time. After bishop c6, now white has an advantage again. And in fact, after that, white is clearly better. And bishop d5 was also possible. But all in all, this now was a really good job by Vachier-Lagrave. He has this active rook. Yeah, looking at the weaknesses. And the knight here is now a somewhat sorry piece. It has no good squares. There was just one interesting point. Yeah, note that still it is 1 pawn island against... come on. 1 pawn island against 1, 2, 3. So this is a matter of weaknesses. And it's very important to note that the... this was wrong. How do I get them? Yeah, get them away all the time. One important point is that this has a good square on e3. It's just a stable position of the knight. Very important. You want stability for the knight, and this is guaranteed by this configuration on the king side. Yeah, white is entering here, attacking the weaknesses. b5 is under fire, f6 is under fire, and in fact f6 cannot be saved anymore. She gave it up. King g7 is not helping at all. You know, running into this. So a pawn was lost. This is a matter of technical precision, and white is doing a good job here. Just wanted to show one cute situation that was arising. Exactly here, rook d3. It's a very nice situation. I mean, look at this. This is a pin. Knight b4 is the threat, winning the bishop. So what is black's move? She cannot go here and here due to, well, rule restrictions. King c6 runs into this thing. Well, king d7 blunders the bishop. If you go here, again, Oops.
Check.
Fork. And if you go here, you have
Check.
f4. Yeah, f4, rook f4, rook d5,
Check.
and white wins. So after rook d3, you're really in a really big trouble. We went rook d8. Oops, rook d8, and here's the end already. Okay, I have a couple of more moves. This is interesting. I'm kind of irritated. I downloaded the PGN from the official site, where it actually continued a couple of more moves. Rook d8, knight b4, king c5, rook d5,
Check.
rook d5, knight d5, king d5, rook f2, and resigns. Yeah, black is simply not in time with the b pawn, and 3 against 1. 3 against 1 is a little bit much. So a win here for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Hou Yifan could have probably held the game if she went for rook c5 here instead of knight c3. But this is a situation which happens really often in top level chess. They get to a position which is objectively okay, but it's difficult to play with limited time. And here she didn't have much time, and some calculation error, some mistake in the calculation actually decided the game. So next game is Liren, the top player from China, against Caruana, world number 2. It's close though. Grishok is just a couple of points behind. Let's see this game. Okay, we are probably getting a Grünfeld, but Ding is playing g3. Yeah, he's playing the fianchetto variation quite often against the Grünfeld and the King's Indian. And now black has this choice. He can go for a fianchetto King's Indian, for a fianchetto Benoni even with c5, or fianchetto Grünfeld, and Caruana is going for c6. This is the probably, objectively speaking, maybe the best move. It's just the kind of no-nonsense approach. Yeah, like, okay, I'm going to equalize here. What do you have? The idea is what black is doing. He just puts up a center compared to the Slav. And the thing is that white has to do something about this pawn on c4. It's simply a case where the bishop on g2 is not helpful in any way after a capture on c4 to get the pawn back. White very often feels inclined to trade on d5 or lose some time to cover the c4 pawn, with some moves that quite often are don't really helping him that much. Yeah, he played knight f3 first, bishop g7, castles, and now b3. Yeah, ultimately you have to do something about the pawn, and this is giving black some other ways of counterplay. In case of a move like this, you really have to wonder how to get the pawn back. Yeah, something like this and this move, for example, is slightly trickier. So he felt inclined to cover the pawn, and this gives black a very concrete way of counterplay now. He took and played c5. Looks a little bit strange, first c6 then c5, but it's just good because of concrete reasoning. Black is trying to use his long diagonal, and he also prepares an active deployment of this knight. Bishop b2, queen b6 attacking the bishop, and queen c1 to cover it. Queen b3 is the traditional main move there, and something that actually I have played in tournament games. I think one tournament game and a couple of blitz games certainly. Queen c1 is a new idea. Ultimately, both moves don't lead to very much. As mentioned, the c6 d5 approach here, this line, is a very solid choice for black against this g3 fianchetto system. The drawback from black's point of view is actually the capture on d5, which is really dull sometimes. It's even more boring than the Slav exchange. Okay, well, queen c1, black took, knight takes, knight c6, so active piece development. White took, it's difficult to keep it in the center, b takes, knight d2, and now bishop f5. Bishop f5 is actually a novelty. according to my databases at least, what was played before, and this makes it very relevant because bishop g4 is the move. This has been played before in a game Ding, yeah, the white player, earlier this year. So no, not really. It was in 2014 in the Petrosian Memorial Tournament. He played this bishop g4 and was played against him, against Gelfand, and it was an interesting game where white had some advantage. So bishop g4 in itself is not that terrible, but it was pretty clear that Caruana, he could expect this position to happen, so he needed to have something. He played bishop f5, which not very surprisingly is the top move of all the chess engines available. So what did happen now? Ding played knight to b3. Yeah, a move that maybe intends to play bishop d4, then queen c3, those kind of ideas, activating and looking at those somewhat weakened squares. The alternative was also to play e4, and we would see that. I believe that the next couple of moves that that happen are really crucial for the way this game unfolds. Rook c8, providing some cover for this pawn and possibly intending to advance it. e4 now is played. Yeah, this is a very interesting moment. e4 is a move that is certainly signaling that white wants to go forward here, wants to do something, but I'm not really sure how good it actually is at the end. I'm not so much in doubt about e4, but what happens later. First of all, well, he played this move, but what happens if black takes? We have to check this. Knight e4, yeah? Bishop takes, king takes, and now just a little tactic. Oops. And this doesn't look good, right? White wins a piece. Black takes with the bishop. It's bishop f6. Yeah, and black will lose material if we do this, this. Yeah, a quick count will come to the conclusion that white has won a piece. Better, relatively speaking, would be to play this move, but after this, come on, takes. We have a situation where white has two minor pieces against rook and pawn, and white has relatively good spots, places for his pieces. The knight on b3 is quite secure, bishop is quite okay. I think the two pieces here are better, so no good for black to take. He went bishop e6. And now e5 was played, advancing, and knight to d7. Yeah, here's an interesting moment, and I think the first moment where maybe white can consider to play differently. The difficulty here is that white has to answer a very crucial question. What about this pawn and this pawn? Those two pawns, they are really interesting here. Should white advance with c4, c5, or should he allow black to play c5 himself? What is the big problem with this configuration? In the game, I can show you what he did. He played rook e1, after which Caruana played c5. And in the game, this pawn turned out to be much more vulnerable than the c5 pawn in comparison. Black had this idea, queen a6, possibly knight b6, and he has quite some pieces on this pawn. This wasn't very comfortable, to be honest. So I was thinking maybe it is better to play c5. The drawback of the move is that it actually gives away the d5 square for black. So black has ideas now that he wouldn't have had in the other configuration, but I think in comparison this is still preferable for white. For example, if we now look at this, white can continue, let's say a move like queen e3. This is not a in-depth analysis, just keeping this protected. Yeah, black was attacking the pawn quite often. This is the way it could unfold, like this, and then knight f8, intending bishop d5, knight e6. I think black is completely okay, but white shouldn't have any substantial problem. in the game, this might apply as well. I don't think that white is like clearly worse, but I don't know. I wouldn't have felt very comfortable playing this. If you look at this, black is always having a look at this pawn, and you're sort of tied to it. I don't know. I don't like this very much. The computer still says everything's great. Yeah, it's equal and so on. It's probably true, but I think it feels simpler to play for black. It's black, you know what you have to do. You attack here. What is white's idea? I'm not so sure about it. One additional thing is that this happened. Now black regrouped the queen to c7. There is this pressure on e5, and now white feels very much inclined to play f4. Yeah, he did that, played f4. Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that is very often not so apparent for less experienced amateur players. It looks totally normal playing f4, but you shouldn't forget that long term your king will be a problem here in this game. Yeah, you have advanced all this stuff, and your king protection is really not good. At the moment, it doesn't look like much, simply because, well, there are... keep pressing the wrong button here. Come on. At the moment, there are so many pieces around white's king, and black is pretty far away with his pieces, so there's nothing happening at the moment, but the long-term king security can be a problem. While it's not so clear that this space-gaining move like f4, e5 netted white that much, the only thing that what it is doing is it's limiting the g7 bishop a bit. But yeah, I mean, this is looking at this pawn, but black has f6 at the right moment. So I don't like this position that much. Even if you can feed it to engines, they give it as equal. Probably the engine is always defending perfectly. So there is nothing terrible happening on the white king, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely would prefer to be black here in this position. It's much easier to play. Knight b6 was played. Rook b1. Yeah, all this looks fairly logical. Queen to d7. Yeah, taking on c4 wasn't a great idea because rook b7 is only good for white. So queen to d7, and I think it is not so easy now to determine what's when it's really going in the wrong direction for white. What definitely is true that around here when f6 hit, that now when he took now on f6, and maybe that's not really helping. It's difficult. It's really difficult to determine. I actually think that the whole structure isn't really good. But it's tough to say where the decisive mistake happened. He took, as mentioned, now played this move, and now Caruana is invading with the knight here. And look at this bishop. That's not so great. Okay, this was the phone. No problem at all. Let's just resume here. Yeah, well. Knight a4, this invasion move, yeah, tries to just take away the bishop, and well, then it kind of falls apart. Note that after this trade of e and of the e pawns here, how open the center is with c4, f4. Yeah, this kind of white has lots of weaknesses created in his camp. Yeah, d3, e3, all those squares are weak, and this is why this move f4, it doesn't look like so far-reaching, but it is really a big problem. If you look at this position and just if white would be able to play the pawn back to f2, just imagine the pawn back on f2. There's not so much. It's not much happening here. Even that would be probably nicer for black at this concrete situation. But yeah, f4 is just not helping at all. He went knight b3 and takes bishop e4. Very strong. Yeah, just going to the central square and intending to push with f5. And just a very strong move. Yeah, let's have a look here. What happens if white takes on c5? Queen c6 is a strong reply. Still intending f5. Note that knight e4 is also answered with f5. And look at this. There's also this check in the mix, yeah? Oops. And the bishop here, yeah, just fantastic. Black is already winning here. Now this is the relatively toughest defense, and here you're also really just an exchange down. f5 was Ding's move, yeah, trying to sort of muddy the waters, but it's not helping. Black can just take it. Rook e1, rook e8. A strong little move. The idea is to cover the bishop so that you can actually move the queen away and then play f5. Yeah, and this is, I think, basically what happened in the game. Took, queen d7, f5. Yeah, and now we see the consequences of pushing f4, e5 and f4. The center is gone, and now white's king is terribly exposed. With the white pieces not coordinated well, this is not lasting very long. Rook to e7, a5. Yeah, trying to dislodge this knight so that bishop d4 is coming with even more devastating effect. Rook a5. Bishop c3. Yeah, it wasn't a blunder, rook a5. I mean, white had no moves, which just lost. Rook d5.
Check.
Queen a7. Check. Yeah, bishop takes d5. Oops. Yeah, looks normal. Probably also okay, but this is too strong. Inserting this check, and then he took with this and took the rook and resigned. Yeah, Ding was only playing on because we see that Caruana had relatively little time, but nothing that troubled him very much, I guess. So a good win here for Caruana. I think he played almost perfect game. Really, no, I didn't see anything what he could have done better. It was just very nicely played. And I must admit that, well, I didn't have that much time to dig really deep. I would have really liked to understand a little bit better around here where white could have defended better, because I'm sure that this is not like losing for white or much worse, but he has placed a burden on himself with weakening the whole position that much to be really precise. But I'm not completely sure where exactly the point of no return was, yeah, or where it really got serious. I mean, here definitely white is in trouble, because the exposed squares here, they are not going away. So maybe before, but I don't like it in any case. Yeah, this was a look at all the games. Besides the game So against Wojciech, which is now in the meantime finished with the draw. It was a pretty dramatic game, and I'm not sure that I'm not doing it justice probably when I just go through it quickly. We have a modern version here of the Najdorf. H5 is a move that nowadays is caught on. Yeah, trying to prevent G4. Interesting way to play. Wesley So now is transposing into a classic plan with knight d5 and c4, which is normally associated with the Soviet chess legend Efim Geller, who played it a lot in the starting even in the 50s, 60s, when the Najdorf was just becoming popular. The long-term idea for white is to play c4, b4, c5, expanding on the queen side, and this plan has gained a little bit in strength because of the h5 move, which is not totally essential in the structure. I think from what I saw, I didn't really look at the game with any depth. I was seeing that white actually made some progress on the queen side.
Check.
Yeah, white is probably going forward slowly, a3, b4, and so on. Yeah, that looks interesting. Oh, queen trade. An interesting situation, a very sharp endgame now, where black has this pawn mass in the center, maybe can push in the center, while white is having the passer potential passer, sorry, on the queen side with the 4 against 3 majority is always attacking here. Has to cover the c-pawn though. Now black is using the king. Oh, very unclear endgame. I mean, maybe it's not unclear if you analyze it with some time on your hands, but right off the bat, I'm not able to tell you who's better here, if anybody. Could also be just equal, dynamically equal. Very sharp position. Yeah, and the breakthrough. Oh wow, tactical stuff. Knight now, an interesting move. Yeah, if you look at this, if black is retreating the king now, kind of, if he's scared, right? Then knight e7 is happening, and we've got double attack. It's nice for white, and well, white is threatening the discovered checks. So maybe black is in some trouble now. I don't know. This looks very tricky. e7. Maybe he could have gone here, right? Also maybe possible. With this idea. Maybe this. Yeah, I'm just making up things as I go here. It's not like I have analyzed it in any way beforehand. It looks a little bit better for white, maybe. Not sure how good it is, but it looks quite good. Okay, well, probably he also keeps something here. It looks... Ah, and now he's actually going through this. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know how it continued. He just repeated once and then went to this. Ah, yeah, okay, he took now. Ah, it looks good for white, yeah, with the active pieces on the 6th rank, the rook. Yeah, tough. Okay, e4 for counterplay. Rook a5. Yeah, this is probably not so great. King is actively participating. No reason to not use it. Okay, interesting. Rook a5, rook d7.
Check.
Oh, okay.
Check.
Also knight d4 here,
check.
Right? Ah, it's pure tactics, hard to tell. I can use the Stockfish engine in the background. It always gives white some plus, but it's not a proper analysis if you let an engine look at it for a couple of seconds, not in such a complicated position. The engine certainly will give you a very precise evaluation if you give it some time. Probably white is better because of his more active pieces, but wow, between two humans with limited time, this is very, very tough.
Check.
King e7.
Check.
Check.
Check. Check.
Just repeating a little bit and then continuing. Tough. The e-pawn is also a factor, but white's pieces are so active. This is probably good for white in some way. But here, okay, well the engine doesn't like that because of this, and f3. And now the computer is giving it a draw, as a flat draw. 0, 0, 0. Okay, rook b6. And now e3, the comp says, is a draw. Okay, and again, e3 would be a draw. f2, wow. Ooh, this is tough. Okay, maybe I'll do something a little bit more proper in the video for next round to give you some information what's going on there. This is super difficult. King d7, 5. c5. There was also, what about, wait, just quickly, what about this? I'm trying to promote. Ah, okay, well, you can take with here. Okay, well, if I do this, knight c4. Okay, there's a check. But I can also do this. Then maybe take here. Maybe something like this is a draw. Yeah, the computer is also close to a draw. Wow. Yeah, very difficult. Rook c5. Rook b1. Oh, now the computer is switching to a black advantage with knight c4. Okay, he played that. Not really understanding why at the moment. 5. Now the computer is giving king to d6. Okay, well, okay, the knight is hanging. I understand. White has no check. So what is your move exactly? If you move the knight, yeah, it's taking on and rook and knight d2. Wow, this was played. Rook e6. Okay, the comp is just giving this as a win. Interesting. So rook d8.
Check.
King to e7. And this is winning now. Why exactly? Ah, okay. Ah, that's nice. Yeah. Okay, white, let's say take here. You have this. And that's really a crazy situation. The rook is hanging. Where are you going? Let's say you go here, right? And just rook f6. You cannot stop that anymore.
Check.
The rooks are, in a way, they're tied together in a way. Ah, that's super tough. Yeah, seeing this thing. Or let's say here, and then there's rook to e6, and then the e pawn is going to promote. Wow. Yeah, okay, this is a clear win for Wojciech, but he didn't see it. Ah, very tough. They were down to a couple of minutes now and only living off the increment, so almost.
Check.
Yeah, and here this is a perpetual, right?
Check.
Yeah, this is what happened. So there was definitely a chance for black to win the game, as we have seen, but very tricky. And maybe white also had chances. He was certainly, I mean, let's say here, yeah, in this kind of situations, white has so much activity. There's probably something there, but difficult to figure out, certainly, and difficult also for me now to give an offhand analysis. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the coverage of this first round, and I should look again. I didn't forget a game, right? This happened to me. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this much longer video than I intended it to be, but I hope it was enjoyable. Thanks for watching. Thanks.